What is up to all the difference makers out there? So today, the day of this recording is August 1st, and it's super awesome. My recording dates have fallen on a couple of important dates in my life. And so today, and we had a guest, Cara Ehinger is on our show today, and she's a power female. And when she said, let's do August 1st, I'm like, I'm so excited that you chose August 1st because it just coincides. So my grandma, her birthday is on August 1st, and my grandma was so important in my life. She was like a second mom. She was there through a lot of hard times I had through my childhood. And so she would have been 92 today if she was still alive. Unfortunately, she passed away 4 years ago. But major influence. So here's my grandma. This is a perfect little story about who my grandma was. Legend has it that my grandma had a job once at a restaurant and didn't like how the boss was talking to her and said, I quit and never worked again. Her whole entire life, she never had another job her whole entire life. And I always my grandma and grandpa were not rich by any means, but I always viewed them as rich, especially as poor as I was as a kid. I viewed them like they had all this money. But to look at my grandma's life, of she got to go do whatever she wanted to do. She got to go shopping. She got to live this really cool life and never have a job, never have that experience. That is really awesome. She also told, I remember as a kid, she told Kirk Gibson to his face that he was a bad role model and that he should be ashamed of himself because he wouldn't sign an autograph for me. So that's my grandma. So shout out, Grandma. Love you. Wish you were here so we could celebrate your birthday. But as I mentioned, we have Cara Ehinger out all the way from Ypsilanti Township out to Brighton. Welcome to Coffee and Grit.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I heard there may be a trip to Blank Slate afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So we see the book Traction being beautifully displayed thanks to Rob's setup that he just got to us a couple seconds ago. We're going to talk today about Traction, about EOS, but most importantly, we're going to talk about Cara's story and what led her to EOS and kind of what led her journey to how she's impacting companies to this day. So let's go. Where'd you start?
That's a good question. Maybe it's a good idea to just give a background of what Traction is.
Yeah, let's talk.
What we're talking about.
Yep.
So Gino Wickman wrote this book, Traction, and in the book Traction, he outlines EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And what usually happens is a business owner reads the book and they say, wow, this is great. I want to do this, but I don't know how. So they call an implementer, and that is someone who will guide you through the steps of achieving traction through the EOS system. So I didn't know anything about it. I read the book and I had this aha moment. Oh my gosh, I have a name. In the book, he outlines the roles in a company, and there's a visionary and an integrator. And the visionary is the one that has the, great 10-year vision for what's going to happen, but they generally probably aren't looking at the everyday details, trying to get everything done and understanding the steps you have to take to get there. And an integrator is the person that does that. And I found out I was an integrator when I read the book. Everyone on our leadership team in our business put the book down and pointed at me and said, "You've got to do this." So it was a pretty unusual moment. And then you look back at the landscape of your life and you say, oh, wow, personally and professionally, I'm an integrator. And I think I told you the story of the closet story.
I love this story. Yes.
So once I read Traction, found out I was an integrator, I thought of this story at first because as a young married couple, we had 3 kids at the time, and we were going to go on our first vacation with the kids, and we set up for the neighbor girl to come water the plants. And, we got on vacation, and, the challenge of getting all the kids in the car and getting to the airport and flying with kids. And I got a phone call right away, and the neighbor had come over to water the plants or kind of get the lay of the land. And she noticed the door was ajar, the front door. And she went back and told her dad, I'm not going in that house, which, rightfully so. That's what you should do. And so he was great, and he went and got our other neighbor, and they walked through the house, made sure there was no burglar lurking around. So they opened all the closets, and they did a very thorough job. And what I didn't know when I came back from that that trip is I had all of these relationships to repair. And you think, why? And I found out that these dads had gone back and told their wives what my closets look like. Like I was like, doesn't everybody have closets that are organized with labels and everything? And apparently not. So,
So all of a sudden they had a new standard to live to.
yeah, it was very hard to repair those.
What's so funny is when you tell that story and I sit and think about it, is most people have to apologize or have a certain level of shame for their closets.
That's
Like
true.
if somebody came over to their house and be like, "Oh my God, please don't look in my closet." You're like, "Oh my God, I have this shame story and I've lost relationships because my closets were so organized."
That is true. That is very funny. I never looked at it that way. I just didn't know. And then, fast forward years actually our business is probably also part of the whole integration. My husband is like, okay, he was a public school teacher and we have 8 children and it's a challenge to live on one income. So we started a business, which is also like, oh, doesn't everybody do that? So he was a visionary for our business, and he used all of his integration skills all day long into the classroom, which shout out to all teachers. That's an amazing job. And he laid his life down for 25 years and affected many people. So in our business, he would think of things and I would do them. And like I put the kids down for a nap and it started our kitchen table and it grew and grew and grew. And like 22 years later, we read traction and I was able to, help our business implement traction. And then we sold the business and I was like, oh, okay, what do I do now? So it was through a series of contacts that someone told me, they'll pay you to lead meetings. I mean, people do this. And I was like, oh, really? I love that. Sign me up. Like, where do I go? I can lead meetings. So an integrator, I should probably explain what an integrator does. In the business, I am a fractional integrator. So it's basically a chief operating officer, a COO. And I go to my companies 1 day a week. And I meet with the leadership team members one-on-one, help them with everything that they're doing or rolling EOS out or do leadership training or help them write processes. And then I have what Traction calls the same page meeting. So that's the meeting with the visionary where the visionary and integrator get on the same page. So we're making sure we're not going in too many different directions. Mm-hmm. And then I lead the leadership team meeting at the end of the day and bring it all together. And then I'm holding people accountable and being able to honor all the work people are doing and help them get to those goals that they've set with the implementer in their session room. So I love doing it.
So to put this, if you've never heard of EOS or you've never heard of these terms, or I think it's very easy to picture what a visionary does. And I think a lot of people that are entrepreneurs probably fall in that category. They're there because they're the dreamers and they can picture this big, they get the vision, right? And they're running after the ideas. If you don't know what an integrator is, it's probably because they're behind the scenes in a lot of cases, or they're one making it work. But very, very rarely is a visionary also an integrator.
Right.
Most of the time, that visionary loses energy and steam and excitement when they've got to then take their vision and put a process to it.
Right.
That's not what moves them. And so when you see a business, and I think we've all probably worked for a business that was just run by a visionary, and it's when you have new ideas, but they're never followed through with. Mm-hmm. It's when everybody just passes everything off to the visionary because they're the only one that has all the answers.
Right. They're the bottleneck.
They're the bottleneck for sure. Yeah. Right. And so it's so important to have somebody in the company, maybe it's a partnership or maybe it's somebody that is on that leadership team that can come in and put the processes in place to make those visions come to life where it's duplicatable and it's trainable, it's deployable.
For sure.
And so that's where you come in.
Yeah, exactly.
From that fractional standpoint, you're able to work with companies and help that visionary put their vision in place.
Yeah. And when I come in, usually the visionary is sitting in too many seats. And we first have to go through some very simple. Traction has, he also has tools in there to help you. And one tool that I love, this is all Gino Wickman's. He put together kind of all the good the business books that were popular at the time and the really good pieces of it and made a system. So he gives credit to other people. Just making sure everyone knows that. I did not think this up.
Yeah.
But there's a tool called Delegate and Elevate where you put what you like take a piece of paper and you draw lines on it, and you in the first quadrant everything you're great at and you love doing. And then the things like you're okay with that, but it's not your favorite. And then down here, the things that you can really do well, but you don't like doing. And then the stuff you don't do well and you don't like doing. And it seems like a super simple exercise. And people are like, why would I do that? For one, I usually have to explain the one quadrant that is things you do well, but you don't like doing. And I say this because I say my example is one of my kids has special needs. And I really work hard to get him doctor's appointments. And I go to bat for him. And I have like a system I work through. Being an integrator, I have my lists and my plans and I write everyone's name and the time I talk to them, and I know how to work for him, but I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
No one's going to take it away from me, but it's not something I like doing. I do it well. But anyway, this tool seems so simple. I say, just put it on your desk and all day long for a week when you're doing something, put it in a quadrant. But once you start thinking about it, it has profound results. And I've never seen anyone that didn't have at least one aha from this tool. So that's a great way to start with a visionary to say, okay, what is the first seat you need to give up? What's draining your energy?
Yeah.
That's after me being there as the integrator to help. The other difference is usually in meetings, you'll get a lot of discussion before there's an integrator. But what I do is I push it to solve. So there's a meeting agenda. We follow the agenda. We solve when we get to the issues part of the meeting. We talk about the issues, but we don't move to the next issue till we've solved it. Meaning someone's taken it to do, someone has a next step, or we've determined this is not something we can deal with this quarter, and we put it on a list for next quarter. That to me is usually the game changer. I've had new hires or something sit in their first L10 meeting, and they're taken aback at the end. And at first I took it as like, oh no, I did a bad job. And then I realized like they would say, oh, I've never seen a meeting like that. It's like astonishing. We solved something. We did something. This went somewhere. It's not useless. It's useful. And I found that when you're running meetings like that, they do become impactful and people look forward to them. And also you save time all week long. So it's been great.
And this is a time where it's like, if you're listening right now, raise your hand if you've been in a meeting that's meetings, plural, meeting maybe every week where you're like, this is pointless. Why are we doing this? We talk about the same things every week. Nothing ever gets done. Nobody's ever held accountable. Nobody ever there's never a next step. We just get there. We talk about the weather. We talk about what's going on. We talk about what happened over the weekend. And, it's like, I know I've been a part of those meetings. I think everybody that's ever had a job has been a part of those meetings. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah. And you usually have like how bad something is, but no one ever solves it.
Exactly.
And then the further, once you've taken on those to-dos, it's the accountability. Mm-hmm. So being able to sit down with someone every week and honor what they've done and then push them to the next level and be able to say, I know you can do this. How are we going to strategize the time or the effort? Or really, have we decided this isn't important?
Yeah.
And if you're pushing it off so much, maybe it isn't where we should be spending our time. So we need to really think that over. But the next step of the meeting is the next week coming back to the meeting or coming to your one-on-one, being held accountable, and then being held accountable in the meeting to say, I did that. It's an honor to be at the leadership level, and we really appreciate what you bring to the table, and we need your involvement. And if you're not going to do that, it really hurts the team. And so holding accountable isn't about like being mean. It's really about elevating everyone.
Yeah. So as you know, and you've connected me, and I'm working with your husband on with a client together. Mm-hmm. So I've been plugged into that EOS system as a fractional sales role.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that I really love about it. And one, and I've said this over and over, it takes the emotion out of it.
Oh, for sure.
With it being done right, you can bring up the elephant in the room. You can address the sacred cows, to kind of use the terminology there, but you can question and poke holes and get people to think a little bit deeper. And it's not like, oh, he's after me, or it takes all that emotion out of it, because we're all working towards that greater good for the company.
Absolutely.
Also, that accountability piece, because again, if you're showing up every week and your to-dos aren't done, you're reporting that to the whole team, and now there's eyeballs on you. You don't want that.
And we found, like, I've seen the process work really well in companies. Like, sometimes there will be someone and on the team, or this is usually maybe a little a level down from the leadership team, but there's always that employee that everybody's like, I'm not sure. Like, we had this in our company, and there was a gentleman, a very nice person, but as we would walk through the warehouse, he wasn't ever doing what he was supposed to be doing. And you always had that, like, oh, I always assume best intentions.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, I'm sure he was just walking to the bathroom, or, oh, I'm sure he'd helped somebody in that department. That's why he was out of his department every time. But once we started instituting all the simple but profound concepts of EOS, we had this, also the next part, I guess, would be the data section. Like, each meeting, you go over the data that you've all decided is the most important 5 numbers for the company every week to look at to make sure we're on track.
Yeah.
And you're able to hold this person accountable and say, this is what we said is the bare minimum for what needs to get done. Tell me how I can help you. Like, it looks like you're really having a hard time. And then the next week, okay, we didn't make the numbers again. We need to have a conversation. But at a certain point there in our business, we found someone that it was a mutual parting. He just said, well, I don't really want to do that. And we were all like, okay, we knew it, but we didn't have a way. We didn't have a number or a measure, or it just felt so intangible. We all kind of felt like he wasn't doing his job, but to, like, bring it out in the open and be honest and say, no, that's not what I want to do. And you say, okay, then it doesn't look like you have a place here. How can we help you go somewhere else where you'll be a better fit?
Yeah. That right person, right seat. And that's another, I loved this, and I picked it up out of Traction the first time I read it, is the get it, want it capacity for it of measuring people. And that's just, as you look at it and answering one of those 3 questions, they've got to have all 3 things to be in that.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's another concept. Simple, out of Traction. He talks about, how do you decide when someone is not working well in your system? And then, besides holding them accountable, it's looking at the core values that you've established and that get it, want it, have the capacity. Like, if you're noticing something's not working, then we need to pull this out and do this. And it's for the health of the organization, and it's kind and clear to the person.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing the person any good by keeping them in a position that's not good for them. You're draining their life, and your business is being hampered by it.
I used to feel really bad and, like, lose sleep over terminating people. And in one, you might have to terminate somebody if you might identify that they're a perfect fit for another seat or another role within the company. But I used to have all this, anxiety over firing people, but then as I did it over and over, these people's lives became better instantly, whether they realized it or not. I'd get so many messages, it'd be later on down the road, that were like, thank you so much. You saw what I didn't. Thank you so much. Now I found a role that I really enjoy, that I'm really a fit for. I've had people say, thank you so much. It was what I needed to start my business. And now I'm doing X, Y, Z. And it's like, message after message is like, I'm doing the right thing, because they don't want to wake up and feel like they are suck at their job. They don't want to have that anxiety.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, they have that. And I think also, usually before a good jump, you have to be uncomfortable. So what you're saying is, like, I actually play that role. The integrator is also the one that has to walk into these hard conversations, or sometimes bring them up at the leadership team level. But I've noticed, just as a mom and as a business person, those uncomfortable situations, just like you said, are usually, that's the, like, jumping board for that good thing to happen. And if you weren't uncomfortable, if you didn't get fired, if you're a high schooler and you're not frustrated with your parents, you're not going to jump and go to college. You're not going to jump to the next level. If you're happy where you are and you're just complacent, like, nothing happens. No good thing comes again.
That's so true. I had a question. I totally lost it.
Oh, I'm glad you're human, because I do that sometimes in a meeting and I'm like, oh, rats, I'm human again.
I'm human again. It doesn't happen very often.
Far too often.
No, I know. So remember, you've mentioned having 8 kids, and you mentioned the closets and kind of that discovery. What are some other areas in your life that you're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely an integrator?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have 8 kids, and just having a big family, and like you're the CEO of a company all of a sudden, you're like, wait, did I sign up for this? Just watching.
Did I sign up for this? How did this happen?
I'm a CEO. Well, I mean, in our house, I'm sure you would laugh. Everything, we have a planner pages for everyone, and we have chore charts, and things are very organized. Everybody had a little bucket when they were little where their toothpaste and toothbrush went, because I was just like, I'm not having a fight over the toothpaste. It's $1. You can each have your own toothpaste and squeeze it however you want, but just put it back in your bucket. Okay.
Genius.
No, we did this with socks. I had like a whole system with socks, and it's been great.
You have to teach me the system on socks. We only have 3 in the household, and it's confusing for me.
But all the white, like, athletic socks, all of a sudden when they come through the wash, they're all the same. It's like, even if you have, like, we have all kinds of sizes, but they all look the same when they come out of the wash. Yeah, so that, of course, like all those pieces, I have, I color coded the kids' cups, and I always lined everything from like oldest to youngest, and I do everything oldest to youngest. We had buddies, so if we had to walk down a busy street, you had to be with your buddy. There's all kinds of integration going there. And then my husband's like, well, we homeschool our kids, so we really need to have a sports program. Kids gotta, play sports. I was like, okay. So, the next week I'm talking to him. I'm like, here's your whistle. Here's the clipboard. I have referees. We have a gym. Here are the parent volunteers. And there are the uniforms. Bring them on your way out. So, yeah, I think we've had a sports program. And, of course, I can't take all the recognition for the sports program. Many, many parents worked on that. It's just our little piece was the basketball piece, because what you can't see is my husband's 6'7", and I am the shortest person in my family. Almost. My 10-year-old hasn't passed me yet, but he is.
But it's a yet.
Yeah, I'm on borrowed time. He's going to pass me very soon.
That is awesome. And again, me and Mike rode down to Illinois together. It was a 7-hour trip there and back, and
lots of bonding for our first trip.
Lots of bonding. But I think about him being 6'7", and he was like, "I don't mind driving unless you really want to drive, unless you have a Mini Cooper." then it's no.
Right. There's no way he was going to fit in that.
Like, it'd be hilarious because I'm almost 6'3", just short of 6'3", and he's 6'7", for us to ride down in a Mini Cooper. It would have been like the makings of a comedy movie. It would have been great.
That would have been really good. Yeah, you guys could have had it. Somebody would have gotten YouTube of that. You could have gotten gone viral,
Exactly. We'd pull up and get out, and it'd be funny.
Well, ours, we always say it's like the clown car when you get out. We roll up, and then whoever's driving our car lets people out, and the person behind us like, okay, 1 2, what? Got to wait there for a few minutes to get everybody out.
Okay, so you realized you're an integrator. You had that aha moment of like, oh, I can charge for this. How did you go out and just do that? How did you pivot and transition to having your own business?
That is a good question. Through my discovery, it was like leaving Spirit Text, and that was our business, and pivoting. It was through these conversations that I found out people would pay you to do EOS. And I really had thought like, oh, I read this to help our business, like, end of story.
Yeah. And
it was these conversations that were pivotal. And it turns out that there was basically the only 2 people who were fractional integrators are in, the Southeast Detroit area at the time. So the person I was talked to at like EOS Worldwide put me in touch with a few people, and I ended up talking to Christine Moser-Waringa.
Okay.
And the rest is history. She mentored me, and it was really great to be able to learn so much. I already had kind of the DNA of an integrator, but just getting the specifics of how it's different from being an integrator in a business. We do take on all of the, for a lack of a better word, you get the privilege and the responsibility, right? Of being the integrator in the company. And she had a proven track record, and she could show me like the tips and tricks and just grow me into a person who could do this. And since then, I've had a lot of clients. I've been able to, in my engagements, either mentor someone up or help them find a new integrator when it's my time to go. And everybody's probably like, what do you mean? I actually work myself out of a job. That's another interesting piece about my job. I come in with resources. I come in with, besides traction, all of my contacts in the US who are businesses running on traction. So say your marketing's not working. There are so many relationships I've learned from, people I can connect my clients to, that we can build these working relationships that really 10x their business right away, because they didn't have to do all that research. I'm in the EOS world, learning, growing, always looking for something new and like how to help my clients. So when I go in, the engagement can be for 90 days, or, as long as they need it. Each quarter we renew. But my goal is to work myself out of a job, to leave the company really sustaining itself with all of the pieces of traction and EOS, and to bring in another integrator to fill my shoes.
I bet there are people that are listening. They're like, what? Like, you're literally trying to work yourself out of a client. Why is that a good thing?
It's a good thing because you can come in with that outside perspective. You come in with all the tips, tricks, tools, and you set the structure.
Yep.
And it's intense for a little while. I'm going to relate this to, teaching a teenager to drive. Like, it's really intense when you're in that passenger seat for a little while, but then they go off on their own, and you did your job, and they're self-sufficient, and now they can go get the groceries. So it's really helpful.
And you've had to go through this 6 times yet already?
Yes.
Or is it,
2 more. And so I am there. I am driving. I'm making sure that they know how to get everything in place, get the structure, making sure the meeting cadence and taking care of all the communication and writing the processes and everything gets done. Then I can hand that package off and say, okay. And then, if you need me, you can reach out, and I have all the background information. So it makes that quick conversation so much easier. Like, oh, Bob said this. What do you think? Like, is that part of our 10-year target still or not? Or should I? And I can just, help them, refreshers, or, help them along the way. But they don't need that intense time to last. They need an intense time to set everything up and get rolling.
and then they just need somebody that's continuing to hold people accountable and put the structure in place.
Yeah. You can't go, the wheels would fall off the bus if you didn't have an integrator after that. And some people try, they're like, oh, we can do this. And then, they give you a call back and they're like, oh, wait.
It's like leaving rehab. Like, I can do this. Oh, no.
Right.
Cara.
I assume
we fell off the wagen.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The EOS wagon. And people have done that. So, and actually, like, sometimes that's how I get a client. Is they've been with an implementer and they thought they were doing it. And then they come to a quarterly and they're like, the implementer's like, I see you guys are trying. I really do. You need some help. And then I get a phone call. Hey, Cara, can you go check these guys out? I think they can do it, but they need to be shown how.
Yeah. They need more hands-on and that intensity to your point. I love the analogy that you use with the teenage drivers, but it's like, and it's empowering them to where then they can go get the groceries. And then as they get older, they're going to teach their kids how to drive.
Yeah.
So they get to go out and now they can go empower other people. And it's so empowering. I'm in that same position. I recently had a conversation with one of the salespeople that was in the sales leadership seat, and I had a introductory conversation. It was
Right.
like, where do you want to go? Do you want to be in the sales leader seat? And you could tell there was an uncomfortability because it seems like I was hired to be in that seat. And is this, and literally I was asked, isn't this an uncomfortable conversation for you? Like, would, if I told you that, yes, I do want that at some point, wouldn't that be weird for you? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
If in my perfect vision, if this worked out in, I could, whether I'm here 6 months, a year, or whatever it takes to do that hard, intense work and set you up in a system that is set to win,
Right.
and you now know, and you have the empowerment to go and lead, and I can leave and everything is going great. I won.
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm not worried about whether I'll get another client because my client, people see that happening, right?
Yeah.
And I'll get more referrals and I'll get more. I'm not
Exactly.
worried about the scarcity mindset. The abundance will come as you go out and you take care of people, right?
Yeah,
And
that's true.
when
Yeah.
you set them in the right place and you set them to succeed, and then you're like, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to get more work.
Exactly. And it's true. Like my clients refer me and I got a call out of the blue. Like I was in, this office and they were just, and we tried EOS, but we couldn't make it work. Can you talk to me about this? And no, I'm going to go see him later this week. So yeah.
Yeah. So incredible. Now, we mentioned implementers. We talked a little bit at the beginning about the differences. For those listening, if you haven't listened, I did have Catherine Jewin on.
Oh yeah.
It's probably been about a year ago now. The episode came out, and fantastic episode. She is an implementer.
Yeah. Dear friend.
Dear friend.
Great
In
person.
fact, she's one of the people that connected us. We were
Yes, I
connected a
think
couple
so.
ways.
Yeah.
Adam Casola, who connects everybody.
Yeah.
Every time I mention his name, they're like, "Oh, Adam's so amazing." So shout out to Adam.
Yes.
But Catherine's connected me to so many amazing people. And so tell me, what's that difference between the implementer and the integrator?
Oh yeah, that's very important. So an implementer goes to EOS Worldwide. They have a training program. They become a franchise, and they have specific things that they have to do under that franchise agreement. And they will come with you in the whole EOS process. Like at the very beginning, you read the book, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You go to EOS Worldwide. They have implementers listed on there. You find the implementer either in your area or someone you connect with. That's something we should probably talk to about, is that visionary integrator mix. But you want an implementer that really, EOS is industry agnostic, but you do want like good chemistry with your implementer. Otherwise, it can be stressful. But
And like anything in life, it's a relationship
Yeah.
business, right? And you want somebody that you can connect with and that you respect, or that you can take criticism from, or
Right.
take that from. Yeah.
right. And so the process is that you go first. They are abundance mindset. They will give you a free meeting so that you can talk and discuss, and you can have several with several implementers so you get the right one. And then once you decide that, yeah, this is for me, you have a focus day, which is a day away from your business, a full day where you start working on the tools here. And the tools would be like having that core, writing down your core values, your core focus, your 10-year target, your 3-year target, your goals. And then you have vision building day 1, again, about a month later, and vision building day 2. And then from there, you're pulsing every quarter, going to your implementer, having that session. And I'm going to say shout out to all implementers. I've worked with many, and they do amazing work. And a lot of people will come to me and say, oh, you're the integrator. Can't you just do this for us? And I'm like, no. The implementer has this amazing role where they're outside of your business.
Yeah.
They can hold the whole team accountable, and they hold space for growth. They will challenge you. They'll just, speed up your business growing and becoming healthy. It's beyond, and I've had companies that are like, oh, I don't really want to go to my quarterly. And I just say, that's non-negotiable. We go to the quarterly. And every time by the end of the day, they're like, oh, we so needed to do this. You were right. You know? So yeah, the implementers, I always love to work with them. And that's how I start, is usually on the implementer-led session. I'll be there with my team, learning what they do the first time and helping them make those goals so that I can hold them accountable to them and come back with success to the next implementer-led session.
That's such a perfect way to describe the value, that the two different values between the implementer in between you. In one of the many reasons I was so excited to have you on today is when I did have that conversation with Catherine a year ago, I had not read traction, let alone had any kind of experience working in EOS and now I have 2 clients that I'm working in very closely that are in EOS. And I've just said recently to just about anybody that will listen, I don't really want clients that are not on EOS anymore because it allows me to do my job much quicker and more effectively. I can walk into a structure and a system that, I can use the tools that are in place, that we can, all those different pieces that we're talking about now. It just makes what I do that much more measurable, that much more, I can make an impact much quicker than if there's a bottleneck here and we're not going to talk about it, or, all the different moving pieces that come when you're not on a leadership team. And,
That's
anyways,
so true.
It's much more powerful for me. And so, and I have clients that are not in, and then here's the other big piece. I've had clients that I've worked with that have said, I'm self-implementing EOS. And that means that they're not doing it.
Yeah.
They maybe picked up some pieces that they liked in it. And, there's a little bit as I got in, like, okay, I can see kind of what you're talking about is like, you think that's EOS, there's pieces of it, right? Yeah. But it's so hard to change your habits and do anything. If you're going to lose a massive amount of weight and train for a competition, it's advantageous to hire a trainer because you have no idea what you have to do and how do you stay accountable. How do you change your habits without having somebody that is there to help you? It's hard to do. Sure. The implementer comes in and keeps them on track, doesn't allow them to cancel the quarterly because if you don't have an implementer, it's so easy to be like, oh, you know what? We just talked last week. We don't really need to do this.
Oh my gosh. Yes. For sure.
So as I'm getting to know this and seeing this picture, it was like, oh, I wish I knew more when I had that conversation with Catherine. But it's like, oh, now, because I didn't know much about EOS, let alone the difference between an implementer and an integrator.
Yeah.
And
your world has exploded in a year.
One, I've had the pleasure of being mentored by Christine because she brought me in on with one of her clients, and so that being my first client in EOS and kind of getting that education with Christine, just like you did. Yeah. It's like as I step in and take other clients on, it's like I feel like I've gotten a great education, and just from the few months that I've been able to work with her, reading the book, there's all kinds of pieces that bring it all together. But it's like being able to see it more clearly now. Of these are the differences. But then the implementer, to then add to your value, the implementer then goes and they're not there every day. So they set up this amazing meeting every quarter or annually in the clarity and the focus and the things that the companies need to most work on are all set in place. But then Monday shows up. And then the next Monday shows up, and the next Monday shows up, and 4 weeks go by. And all the things that you were so excited and motivated about in that quarterly meeting, all of a sudden, life just happens. That's where you come in.
That's where I come in, coming once a week. Because a lot of companies are not so big that they need that all the time. That they get 80% of what an integrator would do in 20% of the cost, So I'm there holding them accountable. And really, sometimes people are like, oh, how can you do that in 1 day a week? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, do you talk to your, the people on your leadership team all day, every day? Or do you pass them in the hallway while you're doing work? Well, most of the time you're not looking at them all day long. You're all working on what you need to do. So that there's that time, you're going to be held accountable. That the whole team is counting on you to do those things and to come to the implementer session with success. And really, we're all working together toward the same goal. And without that day away with the implementer, it's really easy, like you said, to say, if I'm self-implementing, oh, I talked to him last week. We all know what's going on. Taking that time away is so clear.
Oh, we had a good quarter.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah. You could be great.
Yeah.
But you just don't put the time in,
You could be great, but when you get into the into the issues and identifying and solving, when you're diving deep, again, we operate on surface problems so many times. So when we have an opportunity with the full team to dive deep into these issues and then solve them and put them in a better place, create a process. Today in our meeting that Mike was on, we talked about being proactive, because by being reactive, we talked about, somebody said, I don't know if that person has time to do this. And it's like, how much time are we spending on being reactive, on answering these calls, on responding to this, on, we have our plates filled with reactive stuff. That's why we put processes in place, because we address those so they're no longer issues. All of a sudden, you're not getting customer service calls 10 a day with this particular problem because that problem's solved.
Right.
How much time does that open up for the day? Oh
my goodness. Yeah. And also to know that the issues or those long-term visions aren't going to be lost. In the process in EOS, there is an issues list for this week, an issues list for the quarterly. And I found that frees you up to say, okay, I'm having this problem, but I know where to put it. Everybody has a common place where they put their issues, and that's going to be discussed. I can go work on this thing. I mean, obviously, if the building's actually on fire, you call the fire department. You don't put it on the issues list and say, well, we'll deal with that next week at the leadership team. There won't be a business then. But, like for everything else.
On a COVID-19 type fire, we should discuss this. Hopefully you had a discussion beforehand of the fire plan.
Yeah. We'll have a process for an escape route right away. We've got to do that.
Maybe even plan drills that you do.
Yeah, that's integrator planning drills, right? And I think the other important part that we haven't discussed is that visionary integrator, that visionary integrator relationship is very important. And they point it out in the book, and there's a whole nother book in the Traction Library, Rocket Fuel, about the visionary and the integrator. Some people read it and say, oh, they're so, they just stereotype people. Well, they do, but it helps to show the differences and honor that visionaries have a very different way of looking at the world, and integrators too. And together they make a business work. And if they have that relationship, then the visionary is free to do what they want to do most and come up with these things they trust. So this is very important. The visionary has to trust the integrator that their vision won't be lost, it won't be watered down, and it will get done. And also trust the integrator to push back, because there's going to be some healthy friction there. They can't have an integrator that's just a yes man, because that's not healthy.
Yeah.
You have to have some healthy friction. I think the biggest thing as an integrator that helps me is to ask questions, to always be ready to, in a kind and loving way, to clarify the vision. And through asking questions, sometimes we come up with, oh yeah, that's never going to work. Oh yeah, then we got to jump on this. This is really important. Still staying within the EOS system and working in our quarter on the very most important things, and putting that idea off if it's a quarterly, we can do it later. But having trust, mutual respect, having the visionary not, there's a problem when the visionary doesn't trust people. He or she will, kind of circumvent the system and go to someone else and have a conversation off the books and tell them, oh, let's try this down here. And then
collusion.
That really causes problems. So mutual respect, trust, those are really important. And, I'll tell you it. This is just between us, right? I'll tell you
nobody
this.
Else will hear.
Nobody else will hear. I actually, in an interview for a client, so I have a process that I follow when I'm interviewing.
Yep.
I run my business on EOS. So really, really quickly into our first half an hour, get to know you call, or would you it's a mutual interview. Do I think I'm going to work well with you?
And to anybody listening that's in business, it's a mutual interview. Yes. Do you want to work with this person?
And a few minutes into it, he's like, I don't mean to judge a book by the cover, but I don't think I can swear in front of you. I was like, well, in meetings when we're all working towards the same goal, you can get heated, and I understand, there are strong emotions there. And he's like, I just can't swear in front of you. And swearing is a very big part of our meetings. So ultimately, I did not get that job. I referred him to another integrator, which is another thing I can say is I'm happy to make introductions. This is abundance mindset. I want the best for you.
Yeah.
And if I can bring that, great. But if I'm not the right person, I'll find the right person for you.
As little as it may be, he feels uncomfortable, and he'd be uncomfortable being him, I guess, if in that mindset.
So I was like, I thanked him for being honest. And
because that's huge.
Yeah.
Most people are not that honest.
Right. So. I was really honored that he was honest and told me and felt comfortable telling me that. I guess, I don't know, just not swearing in front of me. So.
No, you're out. I can't swear in front of you. So what do you do in order to stay on that same page with your visionary?
Well, weekly meetings with an agenda, but also being flexible enough to say, what's on your mind? How is this going? What's working? What's not working? And I find with my visionaries, a key thing is sometimes getting away. Usually, you bring their executive assistant to help take notes, and just having a blank wall where you can put those humongous sticky things up and you say, okay, this is the 10-year target you've told me, walk in it. Tell me what it looks like. Okay, what has to happen for that to be true? And kind of working your way back and helping them to see that we're taking the business, everyone's taking this seriously, and this is the next step this quarter that we're going to take. So going into an implementer-led session with this in mind so that we can honor the vision for the company and really make good quarterly goals.
As you were talking, it made me think, and I've got to reiterate and ask this question. What is the power in being that outsider looking in, or being that you're not the full-time employee? What is the power in that?
Well, I think there's a power in being objective. First I walk into a situation that I don't know that, Will and Becky went to high school together, or so-and-so and so-and-so had a project that fell apart, or I don't know any backstory. And I just take people at face level. And I usually try to do some team health building. I mean, we work through all of these things. Mm-hmm. I think there's really a lot of value in not being there every day because, Tuesday was intense and we were all doing this. But then, Wednesday I'm talking to another client. Two things. One, I have that time to process. I have time away from, I don't have to come in the next morning and see those people. But I have other clients. And it's happened within a week. The, client A was struggling with something and client B was a little bit further ahead in their struggle, and they had an aha that I brought back. And,
isn't that amazing?
It's scary how often it happens.
Yeah. No, I've experienced a couple of the same things. Yeah. It's really fun.
So you're bringing all of those tools and other learning experiences back each week. And not just like what I brought the day I walked in. It's what I bring every day as I'm growing as a leader in each company. There's
a constant growth within you.
Exactly.
Which in a lot of cases, it's hard to find leaders, period, that are constantly growing and constantly learning lessons. Sometimes as you get complacent on that leadership team,
right?
People get complacent and they're like, I'm just here riding it out.
Right. Yeah. There's that like, okay, I got 5 more years and this milestone happens so I can retire or I can leave or I can do this. And you don't get excited about what you're doing day to day. You don't even look for an improvement because you're like, oh, it's okay, But
how many times have you noticed something that maybe the rest of the team wasn't excited about and you're able to point it out?
Oh, really?
They didn't see it. They've been they've been looking for the bad all this time. And I think that's often we get so caught up, whether individuals or as a company,
right?
We get so caught up in the weeds of what's not working that we don't see what's obvious in our face of what is working and what our true difference is in the industry.
Yeah. And also like, I think there is a possible, so another piece to traction in EOS is having metrics. We talked about having a scorecard or some kind of way to measure once a week. You look at, is this going? And I've come into a company where all of the metrics were red and they were just paralyzed. They couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And no one was associated with any of the numbers. They were just numbers. And so everyone just said, we missed it again. That's too bad. Until you have this living, breathing structure and system and you're working in it, it just seems like a number.
Yeah.
And so there's no action, there's no thought to make it better or learn and grow or, take that next step. So I can bring that to a company and just have this like new wave of whatever, fresh air or,
I resonate so hard with what you're talking about because I've grown up a Lions fan.
I'm so sorry. My husband said he doomed our children, because they've been Lions fans. I
think we talked about this.
Oh, I'm sure. On one of your 7 hours of traveling.
My son doesn't even watch the Lions. He'd given up, and it's like so sad. At one point, he was like, "Dad, it's like I don't know why you even get upset. Like it's it's one of those things. It's like I've never seen them win ever." And it's like the last playoff game the Lions won. I was 12 years old. It was 1991. I'll never forget it. It was a huge moment in our family. Everybody got together. It's the last playoff. Anyways, you get used to losing. That stench of losing is so hard to get over. Right. It's like, because what is a goal? It's just, we set goals like we normally do and we never win. So it doesn't, what should they expect?
Exactly. Yeah. And some of that I think also happens when you're self-implementing. Just kind of you get stuck in a rut. I don't know. Have you read like Predictable Success?
No.
That's again, like I'm always reading.
Yeah.
So I can bring this back, but I'm not going to get it right. But they have kind of the life cycle of a business.
Okay.
And so like at the beginning, you're all excited. Then you kind of fight through the hard times, right? The rubber hits the road and and then you get it. Like finally things are working. You're trudging it out. You're finding out those ahas, you get new customers, it's working, it's growing. You need healthy friction there, and then you start writing processes. But if you get stuck in a rut and it becomes only processes, you go down the hill on the other side to the rut. And finally, if you can't get out of the rut, you go to the death grip and you're out. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where EOS comes at that, where you've struggled through, you're finding the success, but you can tell you're going down. If you're like, you've lost your first client, something, you hear someone saying, well, this is just how we do it. You're not growing and trying. You're falling down. So don't fall down, go back up,
For that's a great analogy. You're really awesome at analogies.
Oh, yeah, I never knew that.
I think it leads into what are symptoms for listeners out there that are thinking, is EOS right for my business? What are the symptoms that you see that EOS typically alleviates pretty quickly?
Oh yeah. Well, certainly there's a bottleneck. They've found success, but they can't duplicate it. They can't grow. The visionary is sitting in too many seats. Usually it's the person who started the business. And at first, they could do everything. They had to do everything.
Yep.
And then you grow, you maybe hire 1 or 2 people, and you're all doing everything. And then you're stretched, and everything's going great. But you're all doing everything. And at a certain point, one person gets sick, or one person is out, or something happens, and then you start to kind of realize this isn't going to work very long, and you can't grow.
Yeah.
And your people are tired and they're starting to get overworked. And the visionary owner is saying, I started a business for more freedom. I can't take a day off. I can't get out of the business. The other thing is, and I'm going to say this like really strongly, if you ever think you want to exit your business, EOS is like the answer, because I've heard terrible stories from people who, their family had a business, but dad, had an untimely death in a car crash or something, and he held all the information.
Yeah.
EOS is this structure for laying out all the repeatable processes and having the communication, having everything set up. So one, as an entrepreneur, you can get that day off. You can get the week off or the month off as you get that freedom. And as a business owner, if you want to hand this down to your kids, or you want to hand this, you want to retire, EOS is really the stepping stone toward that. A lot of people in the exit planning world are gravitating toward EOS, just saying my clients have to do this first before they can really do anything. It's a great model for that. And also tired, overworked.
Yeah.
And that's what we bring. Like, as you alluded to, my husband has since left our business, and he is a fractional integrator as well. And we sat on the business side. We know the hardship. We know being up at night, worrying about those issues and caring for your employees, and really understanding that their welfare depends on you, and you are trying to make all of these decisions. So that's the perspective we bring as fractional integrators. We've sat in that seat, and we can say, this works. We know it. It's not going to be like a very easy process. It's simple. It's not easy, but
simple is never
nothing,
easy.
Yeah, but nothing worth doing is, just easy and simple. You have to work through something hard, and then comes that time where you've made the processes, you've put the right people in the right seats. You can now back up a little bit and have a week off, or have a day off, or have that more family time and work-life balance.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that one of your superpowers, you and Mike, is that you've done this, that you have applied this to your company. It has been that structure. You mentioned selling it, it probably made your company worth more when you're selling something with a system and a process.
Oh, if you can hand something over that has a system and a process, it's always better. And I've seen companies go through this. That's really how I came to know this, was exit planners saying, oh yeah, my client sold last month, but if they had just done EOS, they would have had this way better valuation, because it's turnkey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Somebody who is retiring from their corporate job and wants to do something can come buy your job, buy your business, because it's running itself. You just hand over the keys and they have a business, and then they can enjoy the fruit of that, and you can enjoy the fruit of it by being retired.
Yeah. Another, just a shout out for EOS and the structure is, a couple weeks ago, I was out with one of my sales guys that I work with, and he was doing a sales presentation, and one of the area managers came out to be part of the presentation. And afterwards, we were debriefing about what happened, what worked well, what could be improved. And he had mentioned the EOS part, because they talk about EOS as their system, and it's their selling point of their company, and the value that they give back to their employees. And one of their selling points in their industry is that they retain employees, and people want to be a part of what they're doing. And so that's the value they're giving their clients. And so as he was talking about how to transition that EOS part and explain it, the area manager said, well, that's the reason why I chose this company. I chose to work at this company because it had a system in place that allowed me to develop as a leader. Versus the other companies, I would have got the same title, same position, but I wouldn't have learned how to be an effective leader. With this system, I looked at this like, this is my opportunity to not only get paid and be a leader, but also to grow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so much growth, and it's just EOS Traction, their kind of byline. It's not mine. I'm not taking it. This is their intellectual property. It's like Vision, Traction, Healthy.
Yeah,
and that's the goal for every company, and it really is attainable.
You look at the problems out there of retaining employees, hiring employees, and when you have something that even employees are looking at, because I thought that was really eye-opening.
Oh yeah,
for Danny to be like, oh, like literally the stuff I'm saying to these companies is it's literally working. People are coming to work for us because we have a system and a structure that helps them develop and maintain, become better personally and professionally, to continue to grow. Like, we're providing them that opportunity, and that's huge.
And those core values are a big essential part of when you begin EOS on those focus days and vision building days, setting your core values, and really finding out what is the center of your business. And then, like you said, when you're speaking to a potential employee, you're sharing like, this is what we stand for. These are our core values. And if this isn't something that resonates with you, then that's great. You won't probably thrive here, and then we don't need to continue the interview process. And that does lead to the retention as you go through the process of EOS and that culture. Then the core values are baked into the culture and into the meetings. The healthy communication and the healthy meetings just leads you to have that traction. But starting minute one, when that potential employee walks in, you gotta you got an opportunity to have success right there.
The differentiator.
Yeah.
And again, it's companies need all the differentiators they can in order to get the right people, right seat.
Yeah.
So we have time. I'd love to know. You talked about potential bad clients. Have you ever had a bad relationship with a visionary or an abusive visionary?
I have, and I had to politely tell them I was ending our engagement early. It was really interesting and really hard because also it's one of those things that you have to realize, like, I have boundaries, and I'm not going to let this happen. And what happened is visionaries are, I would say visionaries as a whole, sorry to use stereotypes, are men and women alike, no, but they're a little quirky and it's endearing.
Yeah.
Like they bring a really important part to a business. You can't have a 10-year goal. If I was the visionary, we'd be like, well, we have the chore chart and this, and
it'd be very structured.
Have all the processes, but we don't know what we're going to do in 10 years. We've got through today.
But it's structured.
Yeah, it's all structured. We know where we're going, when we're going, how we're getting there. But I'm not for looking at that. So that's very, very important. And it's their unique ability. And I always honor my visionaries for, like, please step into that role. It's super important. And it's a lot of times they've been told, like, don't do that, sit up and shut down. I mean, just like that. Yeah. But this particular visionary, and I've seen a couple, they had really no sense of boundaries, and they were really, they would push someone to the brink and then pull back and overpraise them. They would take meetings, kind of those end runs I was talking about earlier, but they would take meetings and implement different processes in some place like overnight. And then I would have no idea. And it wasn't that I wasn't there the rest of the week. It was that this is just how they're going to operate.
So they're constantly superseding you.
Oh, yeah. And just kind of laughing about it, they hold a position in the company, but they don't put themselves on the accountability chart. So no one can hold them accountable for being the salesperson, but they are. They just want to do it their own way, and they don't want anyone to say, oh, that's not the process we're following. Very often, and this is an interesting one, they take meetings in places that are odd, and they work like all of the time, which is actually not healthy or good. I was actually on a meeting that she set up when she was in the hospital getting prepped for surgery.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that seems like it's kind of a sacred space when you're in the hospital, and to be trying to work on business at the same time. And I felt uncomfortable, in a different country on the phone.
Yeah.
I was like, why don't we think about this later when you've recovered? So those are some signs that you have an unhealthy relationship with your visionary, and they need you to set the boundaries and help them, be accountable, or you need to set the boundary and say, this isn't healthy and I can't help if, it changes every 5 minutes. You're calling people when their dad's funeral is going on, and it's not healthy. So we can't continue.
There's a reoccurring theme, and I asked this story for a reason, because several of my past guests have mentioned that it's okay to say no to clients. It's okay to turn down business. It goes back to that abundance mindset and not the scarcity. But so many people will take a client or lower their prices in order to meet a client's demands, or put themselves in abusive, bad situations because they feel like either the client's always right or that there's not another client that will go out there and pay them. So I like asking that question. It's been successful. It's been consistent through the last several guests that if there's a client that's not meeting your standards, your core values that you talked about earlier, core values are huge. If they're not meeting those core values, it's not worth no matter what money they're paying you.
Exactly.
But most of the time they're trying to pay you less too.
And the other part of that is my best clients come from my best clients.
Yeah.
So if you're changing your standard to meet someone who is not healthy and is not going to treat you well and not going to pay you well, then you're putting yourself in this whole other pool of people that you're not going to be comfortable working with. And if you wait and you hold your boundaries and your value and you work and you do a good job for a good client, they're going to refer you to people that are like them and that hold your core values and that you want to work with and you're excited to work with. And again, with that unhealthy visionary, it was always nitpicking about getting like, I don't know what you did last week at, between 9 and 10. And I had to say, like, my best clients see the value I bring.
Yes.
And I have never been questioned about
what I do between 9 and 10.
Yeah. The nitpicking amounts of time. So that was a big red flag.
That's just huge. It's so huge. Yeah. We do not have to take clients that don't meet our core values and that make us miserable. And again, most of those people are trying to be cheaper.
Right.
They want to pay less. And this was the point. I'm kind of rambling here. The point that you had mentioned that is gold is that they refer their friends. Mm-hmm. And I've walked into so many organizations or talked to so many different salespeople that are making us a deal, lowering their price. They're trying to make this deal, or they're putting up with a bad situation under the pretense that they're going to send me referrals. And my question all the time is like, do you want other clients like them? Because that's what they're going to send you. They're going to tell their friends that they're so cheap that you can talk them down on price and they'll put up with everything. They'll do this. And like you're priming the pump for other bad clients. You want to get clients that are great, that are referring out other great people.
Yeah. And they're out there. And once you get on the phone with one, you're like, oh, of course. This is the one I rated for.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so worth it.
Yes. Yeah. And most of the time, I notice that when you fire that client or turn down that job, another opportunity opens up that is way more up your alley or way more, much better. It's crazy. It's been across so many people, myself included, that I've seen that happen. You fire that person or you say no, and all of a sudden an opportunity opens itself up that was way better than that one.
Yeah. And just like firing an employee, firing a client, you have that, what do they say? 36 hours of pain or something. You second guess yourself and you're like, can we really do this? Is it really like, can I put up with this for this much money? And you're just, no, I don't want to. And I don't want to continue the string of bad clients. I want to keep moving towards people that have my core values and will be a great fit. And we can do so much more together. Like working with those bad clients, you're kind of hampered in how much you can do for them.
Absolutely.
And it looks like you're not performing, but you realize it's the whole culture is broken and you can't build on a broken foundation. So if you go to the good clients, you have strong foundations, you build faster, better, and in a healthy way.
Such a beautiful way to put it. Cara, thank you so much for coming out here and having this conversation. This has been a fun one.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.